Well, it was a precision airstrike, clearly in Pakistan airspace, that has now been accepted by the Pakistan government that 8 Indian aircraft did in fact cross into Pakistan airspace. Does this change everything? India finally sending that decisive message that we're not afraid of crossing into your space to put an end to terror, that we will not tolerate terror. What does this mean for both the countries going forward? Joining me on the show, Amitabh Sinha, the National Executive Member of the BJP. Brigadier Rumail Dahiya is a Strategic Affairs Analyst. Neerja Chaudhary, Senior Journalist. Vice Marshal Sunil Narodkar is retired from the Air Force. Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat, and Vinay Tiwari, Consulting Editor. Vinay, I will start with you, of course. This sends out a very, very clear message. And while Pakistan has been denying all day, that's expected that Pakistan would deny. But the message that India has sent out is unequivocal, that we will not put up with any sort of terrorism anymore. This changes the strategic response that we have given Pakistan up till now.
Yes, and I think the two big messages is, number one, that India's strategic patience has now ended. We are no longer patient about the attacks. That is one. Two, so far, the covert acts of terror by Pakistan were met by condemnations. Now India has told them that covert act of terrorists will be met by overt action. And that's the big shift. And this is the second time in 3 years that India has done it. And the third, by the symbolic act in many ways of using the Air Force. Strategically, yes, but it's also symbolic in many ways. And then striking a location which is inside Pakistan, it's not POK, sends an even bigger message that this is that red line has been crossed. And every time that something like this happens, you've also called their nuclear bluff in many ways, because remember, every time something like this happens, Pakistan raises the nuclear bogey just to claim and pretend that they're a nuclear power, and hence almost suggests that India cannot retaliate. The fact is, India is saying we can and we will. And by striking Balakot, it sends a significant message and I would say a decisive shift in the strategic initiative by the Indian government.
Obviously from Pakistan's point of view, they don't have too many options on the table before them right now. And we haven't seen a very coherent response, even from the government. Various people in the government have said different things during the day. None of it actually adds up to one single response.
Not just that, I mean, the defense minister has actually gone on record to say they couldn't spot the planes because it was dark. So you had responses as absurd as that. I mean, I've never really heard any defense minister of any country say something like that. So yes, they're shocked in many ways. And I think that the larger point is that unlike India, which has an opportunity in that sense of striking at non-state actors, as they would call it, Pakistan has no such thing to do because India doesn't have anything like this.
Yes.
The only option for them is to escalate this militarily. And if they do that, they will be risking going into an escalatory spiral. And can they afford to do that? The answer is perhaps no. They are the weakest in terms of the economic strength that they have. And they are also perhaps the most diplomatically isolated in the world that they've ever been. And so can they afford to do that? There's a big question mark on that.
In fact, I just want to play out that soundbite by the defense minister, if we have it. This was at a press conference held not very long ago, where he actually said that the Pakistan Air Force was ready, but because it was at night, they weren't really able to assess the damage or do anything about it. If India were to come back this time, they would do something about it. It's actually quite laughable. Could we play that out, please? We also have Prabhu Dayal with us, former diplomat. Mr. Dayal, obviously, a lot of the things that are being said right now are amusing. But also, if we look at this from a more serious point of view, it's been over 12 hours since the information about this broke to the rest of the world. And there's been a rather muted response from the international community towards Pakistan. How are you reading what's happening right now across the world, and the fact that, picking up from what Vinay said, this leaves Pakistan perhaps a little more isolated?
Well, Pakistan does stand isolated because there is a UN Security Council condemning the jaish-e-mohammed, which is in fact a proxy of the Pakistan army. And within the Pakistan National Assembly today, there were cries of shame, shame, Imran Khan. So the Pakistani legislators themselves are aware of the fact that Pakistan is being looked upon with a sense of ridicule. Now, the earlier panelist very rightly said that Pakistan doesn't believe that it can take on India militarily because India is much more powerful. So therefore, it has pursued this tactic of waging proxy war, and it has got along with this tactic quite far. But I think our government has sent a very clear message by hitting Pakistan very hard across the line of control. And it is beyond doubt that more than 300 terrorists have been wiped out. So the message is very clear. If you kill 400, we will kill several times that number. And I think a strong message was the need of the hour, and that has been sent across.
Well, you know, we also have Brigadier Dahiya with us. Yes. Yes, go ahead, please.
May I continue?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh. Okay. The point is that the noose is getting tightened around Pakistan. All terror emanating from Pakistan needs financing. And this financing has been coming through a variety of means. And the Financial Action Task Force has already put Pakistan in the grey list. There is every likelihood that it will put Pakistan in the blacklist for the simple reason that 8 terrorist organizations had been proscribed by the Financial Action Task Force, 8 terrorist organizations in Pakistan, and one of these, the most prominent one, the jaish-e-mohammed, claimed responsibility for the Pulwama terror attack. So it's beyond doubt that terrorist organizations proscribed by the FATF are allowed to prosper. They have huge setups and are in fact aided and abetted by the Pakistan military. So it's time that the world community is now calling Pakistan to book. And I don't see that Pakistan will get away with its misdeeds much longer.
Well, absolutely. Brigadier Dahiya is with us. He's a strategic affairs analyst. Brigadier Dahiya, thank you for joining us. Obviously, for the rest of the citizens, it's a 21-minute, precision airstrike. But there would have been a tremendous amount of planning that would have gone into it. And we didn't have too much time after Pulwama. We understand now that there's still briefings going on, that all of our forces, domestic and otherwise, are on high alert. Could you give our audience an understanding of the kind of planning that goes into something like this?
What happens, first of all, is that armed forces always have this practice of having contingency plans in place so that they can immediately respond to an emerging situation or something that has happened. That's number one. Secondly, in the past, we have a couple of times been found short in the sense that, now I'll give you an example, when 26/11 took place and there was some talk of retribution, particularly on jaish-e-mohammed, I think one of the reasons given was that there will be collateral damage, and we must avoid collateral damage to the extent possible. Maybe because the pinpoint accuracy that was required for the target wasn't there. And of course, probably there was lack of political will, wherein we said we don't mind if there is some collateral damage as long as the punishment is delivered immediately, because more than 250 people had been killed. So this time round, we have traveled a long distance since then. One, probably our intelligence has been organized well, and we know where exactly what is happening. And how much strength, what activity is taking place. And that probably suggests that immediately after the orders were given to the jihadi tanzeems to leave Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and go back in the depth, considering that Pakistan is in their scheme of things or in their prognosis, they always thought that India would never go beyond POK in any case, and air strikes would be escalatory. So India, considering its good boy image, will never try and breach that red line. However, it seems what has happened is that the day this attack took place in Pulwama, I think the political leadership decided that they cannot afford to sit quiet on this, and Prime Minister made it very clear. I think people should be able to read those things very clearly, wherein he said that the pain that is there in your heart is the same pain is in my heart, and I had given full liberty to the armed forces to plan the operations at the place of their choosing, time of their choosing, etc., etc. So this was very clear political demonstration of political will. No Prime Minister can afford to go back on his words like that. It was very clear. Thereafter, I think the contingency plans must have been, polished up. They must have been presented to the political leadership, and political leadership took a decision. Then came the question of Selection of the target, exact selection of the target amongst many, and the timing. And the use of weapon platforms to be used. Obviously, the short distance strikes, the strikes that took place last time were out of question because Pakistanis would have been prepared for that. You know, in many cases, militaries of various countries always prepare for the last wars. So in this case, they must have prepared for the last surgical strike. So that was out of question. Secondly, I think the message to be delivered this time had to be stronger, had to be more punitive also in this thing. So therefore, a decision was taken to go there. The timing was selected very carefully. If you see, there was also a necessity of creating some kind of a lull in the situation, some kind of, you know, saying that India is somehow not going to do something like that. And that is why yesterday, if you saw, the Prime Minister's day was very busy. He addressed ex-servicemen. He went to inaugurate the war memorial, National War Memorial, and then he went to another summit where he delivered a talk. So I think the surprise element was achieved by creating an environment, creating an ambience that nothing is going to happen very soon. And thereafter, of course, then was the swarm attack kind of a thing. Instead of sending a sortie, instead of sending a mission with 2 to 3 aircrafts, which normally you would do for a small little target like this, they sent 12 aircrafts in one go. As a result of which, when 2-3 F-16s were scrambled to intercept them, they found that they were hopelessly outnumbered and they couldn't have done anything about it, and that led to the success of the mission. So I think it was an extremely well planned operation after clear political directions and professionally executed by the armed forces.
Well, we also have Air Vice Marshal Sunil Nandodkar, who joins us right now. Obviously, congratulations and compliments to the Air Force, Vice Marshal Nandodkar, but the Mirage, the platform that it is, has you know, in no small terms, completely outsmarted and embarrassed the Pakistanis, especially if we go by that soundbite about the fact that the Pakistan Defense Minister accepting that our aircraft went into their space, actually dropped bombs, and they couldn't detect them. So this is really the result of the training, the sortie after sortie that is flown, the low-flying aircraft, the fact that we managed to completely avoid detection for the entire 21 minutes, which is a long time from the point of view of the Air Force. So I want you to help our viewers understand what goes on really when you put together a plan like this and the strategy that is used to make sure that you avoid detection.
Faye, I think this kind of targeting is not done between Pulwama and now. Actually, it goes back much earlier. You know, all these terrorist camps were on our sites. We were gathering intelligence for a long time. Both all kinds of means were used to gather intelligence, including intelligence from ground. You know, NTRO and you know, the satellites that are there in the space. This entire gambit was used to gather intelligence over a period of time, and we had you know, all the know-how as to where these camps are located. Of course, one must understand that these kind of terrorist camps keep shifting. So all that is being monitored every now and then and kept track of. And from there comes as to how best we can take on these targets in terms of whether you want to you know, you can calibrate your response in terms of whether collateral damage is acceptable, not acceptable, and based on that you will choose a weapon and the best platform to you know, deliver that weapon. Once having done that, you also you know, plan out as to how to deceive the enemy in terms of its you know, capability to monitor intrusion by these kind of platforms, how to deceive them by launching you know, some routine sorties in that sector, which they have been monitoring over a period of time. Choose a time and specifically, like you have various terrorist camps in Pakistan in this region, but why these three were chosen? Because that has to have a reason. it has a huge impact. First of all, this is one of the major locations where 300 plus is just the number that we are quoting. We don't know actually. There could be much more than that.
Yes.
Being trained there and ready to be pushed in all three directions. So, all in all this goes on with respect to the plans, and ultimately. It's not only mirages, the early warning aircraft, the airborne early warning and control aircraft, they were monitoring as to for past so many days as to what is going on the other side, how the Pakistan Air Force is behaving in these sectors. While my
Yes.
colleague covered the full gamut of how on ground politically the Prime Minister had kept his routine absolutely busy and regular. There was no reaction from anybody on even a smallest reaction was not given by any of the MOD officials. Aero India went off despite whatever has happened. That went off. Everybody who was supposed to visit there has visited. So all these things, life kept normal, and suddenly you spring a surprise, and that is what brings you the best of the results. So it's not only Mirage 2000 platform, it is entire plans, both MOD,
Yes.
MHA, Foreign Ministry, and defense services. And specifically, when Air Force is used, it is a huge strategic message that you send across, because air power has got a different connotation in a realm of war. So therefore, all these things have been going on in terms of planning from the time Pulwama has happened. The specific decision to use the Air Force first must have been taken by the CCS. So, it's not one day's activity or, last 2 weeks activity. It has been planned well earlier, how to engage these kind of targets, and specifically these targets, and execution from Pulwama
Yes.
onwards.
In fact, in the information that's just coming in, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj has just departed for China for the 16th Foreign Ministers meeting of Russia, India and China. And obviously, counter-terrorism will be on the agenda for that meeting. And with the permission of the panel, I would like to address some of the questions that are coming in from our viewers. And our viewers do have questions. Vikas Sharma, and this has to do with the information I read out. Vikas Sharma on Inball asks us this question: will China back India here, or will China back Pakistan? And China is an important, entity in South Asia politics. Vinay, you first. Which way do you think China will lean? And first, if you could take us through China's interests in Pakistan, which are considerable.
Yes, I mean, just to answer the first thing, China has already, in fact, responded. And the fact that they've said that that both countries should exercise restraint is actually a huge disappointment for Pakistan. Remember, Pakistan today considers China as its closest ally. And if its closest ally says exercise restraint and does not condemn the country which actually carried out the airstrikes, it's a huge disappointment.
It's a huge disappointment. Nija, let me just take that question to Nija Chaudhary as well. Nija, China saying that both countries should exercise restraint. Vinay was just pointing out that's a disappointment for Pakistan. How important is China's view here? If you could take our viewers through why China is so important, and any sort of escalation, if it does happen, China would be an important opinion there.
I think what China will do is probably one of the most critical factors here, because in recent years, China has increasingly stood by Pakistan as an ally, and but recently in the UN Security Council, UNSC, they had gone along with the resolution instead of blocking it, naming jaish-e-mohammad, though they did not name the Jaish chief, and they have blocked him being declared as a global terrorist in the past. So and China's statement, that hoping that India and Pakistan can sort out their issues, is a very interesting statement coming from China at this particular point. But China's response is of concern to India, and I'm sure our government would have worked the telephones and talked to the Chinese leadership in advance before they took such a step. But, what the government did today, what the Air Force did today, is not just government action. It has the backing this time of the entire country, because it is the water going over the head. It is really, Pulwama was really a tipping point. Enough is the reaction in the country. And ever since Zia-ul Haq's time, when they have tried to bleed India by encouraging this kind of proxy war from within the country, Indians have watched it. From time to time, the government has engaged in track 1 and track 2 to reach out to Pakistan, to thaw, to go in for better relations. But this one thing, this strategy that Pakistan has pursued through non-state actors, as it says, is just gone on. And somewhere the people of India now say enough is enough.
In fact, Sushma Swaraj also spoke with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo a little earlier today. So she has, in fact, been reaching out to all of those important players. Prabhu Dayal, bringing the question back to you about China. The China's responses so far, does that give you confidence that Pakistan is going to find itself even more isolated?
Well, I'm quite distrustful of the Chinese. Very frankly, when they went along with the inclusion of jaish-e-mohammed in the UN Security Council resolution, they went along only because the resolution banned an organization which is already banned in Pakistan. The jaish-e-mohammed has been banned since 2002. But the Chinese did not allow the inclusion of the chief of jaish-e-mohammed, Masood Azhar. I will not call him a Maulana, because a Maulana is a learned man, whereas Masood Azhar is only a terrorist. They did not allow his inclusion because he is their man, their go-to man. He is the one who helps them guard the Chinese investments, along the CPEC from any sort of attack. The Chinese have been very protective towards Masood Azhar, and the UN Security Council resolution kept away from naming and shaming Masood Azhar or putting any sort of restrictions on him. So the Chinese have always used Pakistan as a proxy against India. Pakistan has called the Chinese their all-weather friends. I do not think that equation is going to change. And when the Chinese ask both parties to exercise restraint, I think they equally indicated their statement at us, because they want us not to escalate things. The Chinese know that India is militarily much more powerful than Pakistan. The Chinese also know that if any escalation takes place, Pakistan would be a much bigger loser. In fact, General Parvez Musharraf has himself said that if Pakistan escalates things to a nuclear conflict and uses a nuclear weapon against us, India would pound them with 20 nuclear weapons and finish them off. So no one is unaware of the inequality of the situation. And by asking the two sides to exercise restraint, the Chinese were as much asking us not to put more pressure on Pakistan. But I have no doubt whatsoever that the Chinese position, which has been pro-Pakistan all along, will continue to be so. China will continue to be Pakistan's all-weather friend. It will be hostile to us whenever the occasion requires. It has kept us away from being included in the nuclear suppliers group.
Yes.
It has done a variety of other things which really don't help us. The Chinese look at us as a very big market. Their trade balance with us is very positive. They have a much, much bigger export figure as against their import figure. They have restricted the imports of Indian software and also the Indian pharmaceutical products. So the Chinese position vis-a-vis India is not really changing. The Chinese will continue to be very, very friendly to Pakistan, give them more weaponry, very heavy, sophisticated weaponry. And when the crunch comes, they will side with Pakistan.
Well, we have a question from O.P. Sharma, which is, will this be escalated, and what happens if it does get escalated? Another very warm question from Nilesh Sinha says, what role can we citizens play at a crucial time like this? And I want to take that question to Amitabh Sinha of the BJP, who joins us right now. Mr. Sinha, obviously enough has been said about the fact that not only did we need the Air Force and its precision and its training, we also needed political will in order to take a step as bold as this one. Also, if you would please address Nilesh's question of what citizens should be doing at a time like this.
Thank you, Faye, for giving me chance after a long 36 minutes to after waiting in your good program, and I am really very enlightened to listen to all your very knowledgeable panelists. Thank you very much. And first of all, when I will start my point of view, let me congratulate you and every citizen of this country through your national channel for this, strong Indian Air Force performance and strongest political will of this country, of the government of this country. So these two things are very important, that our defense forces are invincible, and number two, the political will which actually gives the strength to the defense forces, they are also intact and towering, Himalayan. So I think these two factors are very important. But first of all, give me some time to give my point of view about Indo-China vis-a-vis Pakistan relationship. See, China, because India betters, they are trying to create the situation or the mindset that China can intervene. See, let me tell you very frankly that China is a business country. They have no longer, maintained that same communist and military-oriented country. So at this time, China basically is trying to protect their business interest. In Kwadar, in Balochistan, they have very huge investment, and very rightly said by one of my very seasoned and very knowledgeable panelists, that in Chinese investment in Pakistan basically is being protected by supporting all terrorist elements like that. But China in itself, they are facing a lot of Islamic extremism and fundamentalism in their own country, in Uyghur problem. So China also is facing the same problem. And as far as the market is concerned, India is much more bigger market as far as the volume of the market and the export import is concerned. So China is basically a business country, and they will look into that perspective only. Now I am coming to this surgical strike, which I wanted to tell you. This strike basically, as MEA has said very clearly, that this strike is non-military, and because of the threat perception by these terrorist strikes, the future terrorist strike, this Air Force strike is basically to contain that future Fiadin attacks in Indian territory. So Pakistan basically is very perplexed. I am telling you very frankly that if you will research Indian and Modi government's style of functioning, after Uri attack also, after 12 days, the strike of surgical strike happened. So this 12th day and 13th day, basically it is a morning day time for Indian system. So this morning system of 13 days was lapsed, and after that the strike came. So this is very open and shut case, but nobody was ready to give any attention towards the research of Modi government's mindset. The Hindu system says that between 1 to 13 days, no action and no activity should happen, and that is the morning time. So after that, today is 13th day and the strike is there.
Right.
So, but Pakistani foolish people, they couldn't understand this.
Okay. Let me bring the question back, Mr. Sinha.
Sorry, Pakistan also is trying to evade.
Okay, let me bring the question back to our viewer who said, what happens if this gets escalated?
Pakistan is trying to evoke Islamic sentiment when India was invited as guest of honor in Islamic Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC. Pakistan, Hina Rabbani, she said in the house, in the parliament of Pakistan, that all Muslim brother countries, they should come united.
Okay.
So Islam.
Okay. All right. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I do want to be able to fit in as many questions as possible. So the question I want to ask is what Mr. Sharma has asked us on Involve, and I'm sure a lot of Indians are asking this question right now. Will this get escalated? Because it is true, nowhere in the history of India has the Air Force gone into Pakistan territory at peacetime to conduct a precision attack like this one. This has happened now. Will it get escalated? If it does get escalated, are we looking at the possibility of war? Right?
Well, look, I mean, if Pakistan actually ends up risking escalation, and the only escalation they can do is perhaps to do it militarily, they are looking at an escalatory cycle. And I'm not too sure if they know, I mean, I'm sure they know about it themselves, but I'm not too sure if the Pakistan can actually risk that. Because remember, a militarily accelerating cycle or a cyclical nature of escalation is going to prove way more costly to them than it will to India. I'm not too sure they are so stupid to get into a war-like situation with India, because they're in absolutely no position to get into a conflict of that level.
Yes, 30 seconds, Mr. Sinha, very quickly, and then I'll bring in the other guests.
Very small intervention. See, this assumption or this, concept that Pakistan will not strike back. This is not a proper picture, because Pakistan basically is fighting its lost battle, and they are fighting for their survival. So they are trying to evoke, pan-Islamic brotherhood, and because of that, they might, because of that particular statement of Hina Rabbani, that Organization of Islamic Countries, they should come forward and get united with Pakistan.
Mr. Sinha, we haven't seen
strike back.
Any evidence of the brotherhood today?
They might strike back.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anyone else on the panel? I did see Brigadier Dahiya put his hand up. Do you want to weigh in on what happens if this gets escalated? Go ahead, please.
Yes, Faye, but before that, I'll just say one small little thing, is that China would try and keep away from this issue also because of one consideration, that, Chinese investments on CPEC become a fair target. Anything that is there on Pakistani soil, in case of an Indo-Pak conflict, that becomes a legitimate target. So Pakistan, probably China will have to start rebuilding Gwadar after the war is over. So that is one consideration China will have. As far as the escalation is concerned, logically there should be no escalation. The political leadership understands that their country can't afford it. They have less than $17 billion worth of reserves, which is less than 2 months of imports. They are in extremely tight situation. But please remember that there is a rogue player within the Pakistani state, and that is the Pakistani army. It is they who now know that their credibility is again suspected. After 71, their credibility had gone down totally. When Osama bin Laden was taken out, they felt slighted but could do nothing. This time again, they felt slighted. The questions were asked in the Pakistani parliament today as to what was the army doing, what were the forces doing when the Indian aircraft came in. So therefore, I personally feel that they will do something. But however, they'll have to be very, very measured in restricting, and if they restrict it to what they're doing presently now, right now, for firing on the border outposts in Poonch sector, Uri sector, etc. If they restrict it to that and they feel happy about it, it is good. If they don't, there will be a problem.
Prabhu Dayal, I want to take the same question to Prabhu Dayal. What happens if there's escalation? Also, there's another question here. Pramod Yadav says, why are we calling this non-military action? Prabhu Dayal, please go ahead.
Well, first of all, let me categorically state that the action which we have taken is not really in a totally peacetime situation. Because what Pakistan has been indulging in is covert warfare. It is low-intensity warfare. So there hasn't really been a situation which could be called a totally peaceful situation. When you send terrorists across into India and you have attacks one after the other, Pathankot, Baramulla, Uri, now this Pulwama attack, it can't really be called a situation of peace between the two countries. And we are fully within our rights to retaliate in whatever manner possible, to whatever extent possible. That is why the Prime Minister had very correctly given the army a free hand to decide the place, the time and the intensity of what it wanted to do. Now, as regards the question of escalation, I must state that from whatever I can make out, we are fully prepared. The government has sent in 300 companies into the Kashmir area. I think we are prepared to take the Pakistanis on. The question is, are they prepared to escalate? And I would very sincerely doubt that they are. Pakistan is in shambles. Their economy is in a pathetic state. They are going all over the place with a begging bowl. They are under fire in the UN Security Council. They are on the mat in the FATF. So how can a country like that afford an escalation of a conflict? Their biggest backer was the OIC, where they always managed to get a resolution against India. But the OIC has invited the Indian foreign minister as a guest of honor. So taken together, all these factors indicate that not only is there a consensus building on the fact that Pakistan is engaging in terrorist activities against India, but there is also an unwritten consensus that it is time to put a stop to whatever is emanating from Pakistan, because the sort of terrorism which is hitting us could equally well hit other countries. It has hit Iran. It has been hitting Afghanistan. In fact, Iran has said that Pakistani citizens were involved in that attack which killed 27 of the Revolutionary Guards.
Yes. One second, Mr. Sinha. I have to be able to give everybody a chance.
All-round recognition.
Nija Chaudhary had a point to make as well. Nija, just like Mr. Prabhudayal said, at this point, Pakistan cannot deny the existence of that terror camp. It cannot deny the fact that it was clearly in Pakistan territory. That leaves them on the back foot as far as any sort of diplomatic allies might be concerned globally.
And I think, when you said, just quick 2 points I want to make, that as one of the panelists said, that this is not a military action in that sense, because it wasn't targeting either the Pakistani civilians or even the Pakistani military. It was targeting Pakistani terrorist camp. So the fight was very specifically against the Pakistani terrorists or terrorists on Pakistani soil. And I think India made that distinction very clearly for the world community. Secondly, and the government has pointed this out today also very clearly. Secondly, you ask about the possibility of escalation. Now, if Pakistan retaliates, and retaliation need not be, on the border. It can be activating some sleeper cell within India of the kind of blast we saw in Pulwama. And you also asked, what can the citizens do? The citizens of India in the coming days have to be very, very vigilant and alert to anything suspicious that is going on around them and to report that to the authorities immediately.
Absolutely. Vinay, the fact that, and this is something you were talking about, Pakistan at this point currently has unrest on various borders, not just the one it shares with India.
Yes, I mean, they have a problem with Iran. The 26 Republican Guards, Royal Guards got killed, and they're extremely upset with Pakistan. They have a problem with Afghanistan as well. I mean, and India has a huge strategic interest in Afghanistan. Now with the US withdrawing from that place, it's of strategic importance too. So they are in that sense surrounded. I mean, it's not happened very often where they're surrounded from 3 borders with countries that are extremely upset with them. The Afghanistan government has gone public many, many times against the ISI. They've blamed them for several acts of terror inside Kabul and in other parts of Afghanistan. And the Iranians are extremely upset. And remember, Iran is strategically a very important part of that part of the world. And they cannot, Pakistan cannot afford to have Iran being so upset with them.
Yes.
So now they have pretty much 3 corridors which are extremely upset and extremely angry at the way Pakistan has handled the whole thing. So they are boxed in, and it's not easy for them to do any kind of adventurism that they would have normally expected to do.
And like Brigadier Daya pointed out quite rightly, with $70 billion in reserves, about two months worth of imports, that's not a great position at all to be planning any sort of escalation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, economically, they're one of the weakest ever. I mean, even Bangladesh, just a couple of weeks back, they had their budget being presented, and they are doing way better than Pakistan on most indicators. I mean, they've just gone ahead of that country way faster than Pakistan. They are in deep shambles economically. There's absolutely no money at all with them.
So actually, the question that we need to pose next is this: was this the best time really for India, given where Pakistan is, given all of the things our panelists have said? Was this really the best time for India to actually cross that sort of dotted line and say, you know what, now we're going to be more aggressive? Because, like has been pointed out in the past, this option has been placed before various governments, and various governments have decided not to take it up. But this time, not only did we have the political will, but Pakistan finds itself in a particularly vulnerable situation.
Yes, and I think the timing wasn't chosen by India. The timing was in that sense chosen by Pakistan by doing what happened in Pulwama. If that had not happened, obviously India would have not gone in militarily. So in that sense, but yes, now that that has happened, the fact that India has responded and responded very decisively has sent a message forever that covert terror will get responded by overt action. And that's, I think, a huge shift in the way India has dealt with the problem of Pakistan acting against India through its so-called non-state actors.
Yes, Air Vice Marshal Narukar, here's the question for you. We do understand that the Air Force had placed this option before the government of India at various points in our recent history. This obviously, and you said when the Air Force gets used, it sends a very different message. This actually now places India in a completely different category. When we're no longer now the category that actually weighs these things, we will step in, we will actually take action.
Yes, absolutely. I think, you know, there are two, three things. Everyone last couple of days was talking about how Israel deals with terrorism, how many other countries deal with terrorism. And this is one of the examples of showing how we deal with terrorism. And I think this is one of the good times, like most of the panelists have covered this aspect earlier, that this is the perfect time to take decisive action and, you know, getting to the root of that activity of terrorism by blowing up their one of the biggest camps and taking on you know, other two places where the breeding grounds were there and the training camps were there. So I think use of air power decisively sends a very, very strong message in any situation. And this is one of the best situations. One small point to add, I think it was covered. As to how, what should the citizens do. Back up your forces, back up your government which has taken such a bold step, and also rightly said, be vigilant, report every odd activity and absolutely be alert, because homeland security is provided by people of the country and not merely the police forces or the paramilitary forces alone. So I think that is a very, very important thing to send a message to citizens to be on the alert and be on the guard. And if you find anything amiss, report to the nearest police station. And I think that is what is required to be done today.
That's actually an excellent point that's been brought up, Vinay. We talked about this a little earlier in the day, that among the possible routes of retaliation might be the option of other terror attacks that they might attempt. At this point, obviously, citizens become very important, especially those of us who live in crowded cities. So quite rightly said, vigilance on the part of citizens will become very important.
Vigilance and staying calm, I think that's even more important. In this age of social media, it's very important to remain calm, to remain responsible, not to spread things which are actually maybe half correct or not correct at all, because that can create problems of its own. And of course, the physical vigilance of public spaces, whether you're entering a building, whether you're in a train or in a bus, and so on and so forth. So yes, I mean, citizens, that's the best thing that a citizen can do, by remaining alert and vigilant and not spread all kinds of falsehoods.
Absolutely. Alert and vigilant, don't spread falsehoods. And of course, be patient with security and agencies, because there is going to be more security in the country in the weeks going forward. We are going to have to take a quick break, but we will come back and we'll talk about right now going forward where this takes us. That's on the other side. Don't go anywhere.